It's 5 o'clock.
Hello. So this is Geraldine, Patrick.
Yeah, greetings. Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to Building the New World. We're grateful to have you all back and grateful for our next guests in presenting in Sector 12, Indigenous Cultures and Microcommunities. And we have with us two speakers. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mindahi Bastida Munoz, who serves as Original Nations Program Director in The Fountain. He is General Coordinator of the Otomi Ñañu Regional Council in Mexico, a caretaker of the philosophy and traditions of the Otomi people, and has been an Otomi ritual ceremony officer since 1988. Born in Tulpetec, Mexico, he holds a doctorate of rural development from Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana and is president of the Mexico Council of Sustainable Development. Mindahi is also president of the Mexico Council of Sustainable Development, a member of the steering committee of the Indigenous Peoples Biocultural Climate Change Assessment Initiative, and has served as a delegate to several commissions and summits on Indigenous rights and the environment, including the 7th World Water Forum in Korea in 2015. He's written extensively on the relationship between the state and Indigenous peoples, intercultural education, collective intellectual property rights, and associated traditional knowledge, among other topics. And as well, we have with us Geraldine and Patrick Encina, who is Executive Director of Earth Timekeepers. She is a member of the Otomi Ñañu Regional Council in Mexico and a professor of ethnoecology. Born to Chilean parents of Celtic and Mapuche origins, Geraldine received her doctorate in ethnoecology and social sciences from El Colegio Mexiquense AC in 2007. Her bachelor's degree is in biological sciences. Geraldine has been a visiting professor in Honduras and Argentina and held faculty positions at several Mexican universities. Her research focuses on archaeoastronomy and cultural astronomy, particularly on ancestral and current ways of measuring and conceiving time and natural cycles in Mesoamerica, especially among Maya, Nahua, and Otomian cultures. So Mindahi and Geraldine, welcome to Building the New World.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Gisen waikike Jean Protege Gisen waikike si Wadatsi ku. It's a pleasure to be here, and I greet you, all of you, colleagues and brothers and sisters, and anybody who is around and watching this program. As you heard, my name is Mindahi Bastida from the Otomi Toltec people from Central Mexico, and it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I am Geraldine, Patrick, Encina, and I am very, very grateful to be here, invited by the Oracle Institute. And we are here to spend this evening with you for about 40 minutes of conversation, and then we will be receiving some questions from you. So with no more ado, we are going to begin to walk with you along this path that we have been creating together with Mindahi, which is about 7 principles to live in harmony and in an intentional community. So we would like to begin our presentation by speaking about what it means to be. So Mindahi will begin describing how different it looks and it feels to be in a community that feels that everyone belongs to the same identity as oneself.
Yes, the collective sense of being is related to the presence of human beings in relationship with all relatives, taking into consideration that in many languages we don't have the word for I, but we have the word for we. And still we have our own identity as we, but in the collective sense of working together. So this is very important because when we think about how to live in peace and harmony and in relationship, and also acknowledging the elements of life which are sacred, we always think about collective sense of being for the transcendence of the human species, because we are one in the unity. So if we think about the colors of the rainbow, if one color is lacking, the rainbow is incomplete. It's not a rainbow anymore. So we acknowledged the four directions, the four colors, and the seven colors of the rainbow. So diversity is very important in the collective sense.
Yes. And additionally, in order to get a broader understanding and sense of what it means for Indigenous peoples to name we, you know that here in North America, all my relations is a statement that is full-heartedly communicated and felt. And as well, if we take a look at the next slide, we're going to develop a sense of place from where we're very young that is telling us that we're totally embedded within the landscape, that we are the river, that we are the mountains, that we are the stars, that we are the moon, that we are also the fish in the river, and we are the sound of the water running through the rocks, and we are the wind and all this, the different intensities of wind and intensities of rain and snow and so forth. Wherever we are born, we are including ourselves in every single element, in every single state of matter and beyond, in every single expression and spiritual expression of all that surrounds us and that builds us up and that enables us to not only live in this sense of total communion with our place, but it also enables us to have another experience in the dream world as well, because we are so embedded and infused with everything that surrounds us. And next is the third aspect of the sense of being, Mindahi.
Yes, this is about the sense why we are here in this world, in this beautiful planet that we call Mother Earth. We believe that we came for a reason, and we need to remember who we are, where we come from. So we know where to go, what to do, and how to think. So the sense of transcendence is so important, because in our thought, we are not the peak of the creation, but we are just another species in this diversity. And whatever we do and whatever we carry out is for the care of life. And it's acknowledging that we are here to protect life. That's the general mission that we are carrying out, and that we need to bear in mind that we are here for that specific reason as human species, and that we think about the future generations. Some cultures, some peoples think about the 7 generations to come, but actually it's also to acknowledge the ancestral wisdom and our ancestors that were here before us. And we are the reflection of all of them, all the agency that they have inherited, they have left for us to continue this work around the care of life. So I like to say that the sense of transcendence is very important, because that's why we are here, and that's how we are thinking even around intergenerational equity. Because we think not just in this anthropocentrical way of thinking, what world we are going to deliver to the future generations, but it's also the other way around. What children, what generations we are leaving to this beautiful planet. And that's what we are now delivering as a main message from original nations. Because one thing is to live with Mother Earth, and another thing is to live from Mother Earth.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. So, transcendence is about the expansion of spirit, and it's about the culmination of a work of service for the broader community. And this work can only be done through love. So we're going to go to the next, yes, thank you, image, which is the first of 7 that we're going to be talking about, which will bring you a step closer to the understanding of what it takes to become one welcome member in an intentional community. It may be a community that already exists, that has been there for many generations, or it may be a community that is just beginning to gestate. And it is true that at this time, we as human beings with all that we're perceiving around us are considering coming together like we have never come before. And the first energy that we need to ensure that we are bringing and offering is love. And when I ask you, where do you feel that the strongest source of love dwells? And you could close your eyes for a few seconds and breathe in deeply and connect to that source. What do you get as an immediate response? Where do you get that response? Do you get it in your mind? Do you get it in your heart? The source of love should first and foremost be coming from within you. That's where it's dwelling. But obviously, there is a greater source, which is somewhere out there in the universe. And if we can tap into that source and we can allow that energy to flow through us, through meditation, through movement and meditation in movement, through walking prayer, through whichever other activity or discipline that you have found to enable you to open those channels to continually be giving love in every single act, as small as looking into someone else's eye. And even not necessarily looking into someone, just letting flow the flow of love through you and into that beautiful person, but also to everything, every single being and entity around you, is a practice that we need to be carrying out, and that will enable us to be welcomed to this intentional community. Next is a principle that speaks about living by the natural rhythms. So, as an ethnoecologist myself, one of the most passionate aspects of my work is to understand how different human cultures, human groups have come to describe the cycles of nature and have come to organize all their activities according to those cycles in a way that will not destabilize those natural cycles, in a way that will not disrupt or will not force some of the beings, the species, the entities of those cycles to come out of balance because you are requiring and demanding that they will give you their fruit out of season. So what indigenous communities were able to do was to observe enough to come up with calendars that would adequately enable them to be in harmony with all cycles throughout the year. But also, and more importantly, today, they learned how to read signs that are being given by nature, and that, if you learn to read, will enable you to be more fluid in that adaptability to the changing environments. We know about climate change. We know about the weather patterns that are off. And even with that, there are signs in nature that if we are connected enough, then we can be advancing in how to proceed, and not necessarily in a defensive way or in an antagonistic way, but in a way that will make less of an impact be felt by our community members, meaning not only humans, but our plants, our crops, and what we have around us. The next principle that we're inviting everyone to consider in order to partake in an intentional community speaks about the need to work collectively. Mindahi. No audio?
Yes, this is very related to the fact that as human beings we have this not just like willingness, but obligation to work collectively. Not just because we are social beings, but because in the ecosystems, there is an interrelationship to work together. So every animal, every plant, they have their own function. And we need to remember why we are here. What is our function as human beings? So this principle to work collectively is vital for the survival of human beings. Mostly now, as Geraldine was mentioning, that we have this crisis, that is this complex crisis that some might call climate change, but that's just the symptom. But the cause is because we have misbehaved. We have gone away from the original instructions. And one of the original instructions that was given us as human species is to work collectively. And we need to remember that. So in any place, wherever you travel, wherever you are living, you need to remember that you need to come together and work together and pull together in order to shift this destruction or destructive paradigm that is killing life. So when we work collectively, we also learn from nature. We also learn from the cosmos, because the cosmos is also doing beautiful work. And every species also, they do beautiful work. So this reminds us how to live in peace and harmony, but with also with respect and obligation, how to come together and learn from each other. So work collectively means that we need to live in harmony and in peace and in dignity with the natural world and the spiritual world. Because sometimes we separate the matter with the spirit, but it's all together. Because that's the energy that is flowing in the universe that is giving us this chance for this experience. Because there is a saying in the ancestral wisdom: we are not forever here, not forever here in this world, just for a while. So while we are here, we need to come together and work together, and that is called the unification process with all relatives. And meaning all relatives is not just the human family, but the plant family, the mineral family, and the animal family. So next is going to be the care for and protect biocultural diversity. And I really love it. I really love this principle. I love all of them, but this one really is, talks about diversity, unity in the diversity. Because this deep interrelationship with nature, and remember that we are also nature. Sometimes people forget that we are nature and we are from the animal kingdom. But we are also plant family, we are also mineral family, and we are also the 4 sacred elements in us, because we breathe, we eat, we receive the warmth from Father Sky, Father Sun, and we live on this beautiful place everywhere in sacred territories, in sacred lands. So that's what we need to protect. There is an obligation to protect and care for life. For the beginning, the 4 sacred elements, and begin to think that they are no resources. Water is sacred. Air is sacred. Earth is sacred. And fire is sacred. So we need to care for and protect biocultural diversity. And let me tell you about biocultural diversity. because in the in the Western world, in the sciences, we always divide through different sciences the knowledge that we can split and we can dig in. But in the ancestral wisdom, we don't separate what is culture from nature. It's all together, because culture is developed through this intentional and this long-standing relationship between humans and nature, and that's a production of biocultural diversity. So this is not just human agency in action, it's nature as a whole, and it's the cosmos, and it's the relationship with the spirit. So one of the main missions that why we are here, as I told you at the beginning, as human beings, is the care of life. So if your organization, if your person, if your nation state, or wherever you are in this world, if you are not caring, if you are not taking care for life, then you must change or be transformed. Otherwise, as you know, we are in a big trouble, because if there is this biocultural erosion, we are eroding ourselves, possibilities for the good living, possibilities to live in peace and harmony with nature, with Mother Earth and the cosmos. Thank you. And the next. Geraldine?
The next principle precisely speaks about the need to learn to read signs in nature. And I don't know if any of you listening is familiar with the reading of the moon. So there is empiric evidence that when the moon rises on the first days as a crescent, sometimes you will see her in this shape, and at other times you will see her in this tilted shape, and very tilted. So they say that when it is rising in this way, it is like a little cup that will be retaining and containing the water of the rains. And therefore you can predict that this particular month will be quite dry. Whereas when it is tilted like this at the beginning of the crescent, then you can ensure that there will be some rains falling. Now this, which is empiric information for Mesoamerica, was proven thanks to the opportunity that a student of archaeoastronomy in Argentina, he had the opportunity to interview some elder people who were living out in the countryside, and he came across one elder man that had been living in Argentina only for the past 40 or 50 years. And in that, in his practice of watching the moon, he had been able to keep a logbook with precisely the shape of the moon at the crescent, and then the amount of rain that had fallen, just by saying the intensity of the rain and how many days in the month it had rained. Well, he had kept this logbook for 40 years. So now this Argentinian student from Buenos Aires had this immense amount of data, which he took to the lab and he processed and converted into statistics. And he was able to demonstrate that whatever people culturally say and traditionally believe and observe is in fact a scientific truth. So you can see with this story about the perseverance that it takes for us, for anyone who wants to become truly engaged in this kind of intentional community, which is not about coming together as human beings, but coming together responsibly in a beautiful land that needs this reciprocal way of living. So, Mindahi, you're next.
Yes. So this reciprocal way of being, you can find it in nature everywhere. We just forgot. In some societies, we have forgotten how to live in reciprocity. But actually, this is what I was telling you before is a mandate from the origins that we need to live, give and receive. Whenever you take, you also have to give. And this is very important because reciprocity is a way of living in balance and in harmony with within the family, within the land or the territory you are living in, but also in just in personal relationships, even in our own bodies. If your body gives you the chance to walk, to breathe, to eat, and have pleasures, also your body needs to be taken care of. You need to reciprocate with your body and with others, especially with Mother Earth. At this time, it's very important to understand that we live with Mother Earth, and that's the main issue. When you live from Mother Earth, there is no reciprocity. When you live with Mother Earth, you carry out anything possible to give thanks, to make offerings, to make payments through rituals, through ceremonies, and so on and so forth, acknowledging that whatever gives you life is precious. And also the work that you carry out in any place where you are working or where you are living. Because if you or we just take and we don't give, then there is an imbalance. Then there is a problem. What we call there is the imposition of the dominion code. Even through laws, international regimes, even through sciences that have been developed in the Western world, just to take over and not to take care. So we need to transcend that, and we need to really think about how to live in this world with responsibility. So reciprocity is not just in the material world, but we need to also think in the spiritual world. It's all together. And reciprocity is with the cosmos, because as you know, Mother Earth also got family. Grandma Moon, that we call Grandma Moon, the Father Sun, and other celestial bodies are also family of Mother Earth. But we are also family of Mother Earth. That's the reason we call Mother Earth. But remember that we live with this beautiful planet. And just remember that Mother Earth can live without us, but we cannot live without Mother Earth, at least at this time and space. And for many years that have passed, we are very dependent. So we need to reciprocate with this beautiful planet and the cosmos, because this is not just the planet that we are in relationship with, but also with the moon, with the sun, with Venus and other celestial bodies that are giving us directions and energies and so much intelligence and knowledge how to live in harmony and in peace. So reciprocity at the very local level, very simple level, is to acknowledge that when you receive, you need to give back. Maybe not to the same person, maybe not to the same plant or animal, but to other ones. That's the wave of life. If we live in harmony, if we live with that responsibility, then we can make it possible. We can really live with these responsibilities and enjoy life. So these principles are very, very fundamental for the good living. And the good living is a paradigm based in original principles that is more than the sustainable development or sustainability paradigm, because this is based in the sacred, even in the sacred economics, in the sacred way of living with what gives us life. So reciprocity is when you carry out some work, you need to be acknowledged, but others are also need to be acknowledged. So that's what it is about reciprocity. There are many things to say about reciprocity, but I think that's what I can share for now. Next, please. And this principle about strengthening collective dignity and strengthening self-determination is so important because, now as human beings, we have lost a lot of opportunities. We have provoked not just genetic erosion, but biocultural erosion. And how can we regain dignity and peace with Mother Earth? It's when we carry out the work we have to do. But we talk about decolonization. And let me tell you that it was around 7,000 years or even 8,000 years ago when there was a disruption, because at that time, almost all cultures around the world used to live together with nature in peace and harmony. And then some cultures, some peoples began to go into another direction. Instead of taking care of life, they began to take over. So this is to exert dominion over the so-called resources, and not just natural resources, but human, what they are called human resources. In our thoughts, there are not human resources. There are not natural resources. There is nature and there are human beings. So what happened before is what is the result that we are now facing. This alienation, this domination code through slavery, to taking over lands, territories, lives, and so on and so forth. So just original nations, some original nations in the world, we are still keeping this relationship and the traditional ecological knowledge that we have is very meaningful for the conservation of life. And that has been acknowledged in international instruments at the United Nations. Not just around the Convention on Biological Diversity, but also in the United Nations framework of the Climate Change Convention. So now people is just realizing that the wisdom, the ancestral wisdom that we have as original nations is very meaningful for the survival of the human species. And not just the human species, but the whole biocultural diversity. So how can we strengthen this principle? Well, through strengthening self-determination, meaning that any decision-taking processes need to be taken in the place by the people, or by the peoples, original peoples, and nobody else is going to decide what to do, what to carry out. That's the self-determination. It's different than sovereignty and even autonomy, because those are concepts that are very related to. But let's think about self-determination, about how to decide in a collective way for the good living. And for this living that we want to inherit it to the future generations and to the future. When we talk about the future generations, it's not just human beings, it's all our relations. And this is very meaningful to regain dignity. So this process is in motion, and this is how we can regain the place in the world as human beings. So strengthening self-determination is to also to be members of the diversity in this world. We acknowledge all peoples around the world. They have the right, but also the obligation to take care about life and give care. So this is about dignity, not just among human beings, but also dignity of all species. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. So I think that we are now ready to receive some of the questions, and I'm already taking a look at them. As you know, we are now in two different places. The fountain is one, and Mindahi can maybe speak a few words about the fountain. Earth Timekeepers, which I am an executive director of, is precisely bringing together all the information that we have, both in codices, which are very old documents, beautiful documents that are providing a lot of insight as to what is our role and our responsibility as human beings. Obviously, it is within the culture of the Mesoamerican peoples, but it does give an outline of how to stand in the world for everyone. And the way that Indigenous peoples have been able to preserve their traditions beyond the period of invasion and colonization is impressive. So I'm going to let Mindahi say a few words about the fountain, but then we will go over the questions that are very, very rich, and we appreciate them a lot.
Yes. About the fountain, I have been in touch with them ever since 2013. And just recently I joined the fountain. And this is a wonderful organization that is carrying out the process of unification and working with different allies, but mostly around the establishment of the Mother Earth delegation through representation of many spiritual leaders from different peoples around the world. But also we are carrying out and pushing forwards to protect sacred territories around the world. Because, you know, territories in indigenous lands are under threat because 80% of the biodiversity in the world exists in indigenous territories, which represents 5% of the population in the world. But let's not take it for granted. There is a deep connection between nature and the way of thinking of original nations. And there is a lot of work to carry out to protect and to live in harmony with our relatives. So we need special regimes to protect Mother Earth, to protect sacred territories, meaning also to push for this new regime that is coming along, which is the rights of nature. Because the previous, or what is still in place, the environmental law is very permissive, and it attempts and it threatens, because it's based in this neoliberal economy. It threatens lands, it threatens Mother Earth, it threatens lives of original nations. So the most threatened places in the world now is where indigenous people live, because of fossil fuels companies, because of mining companies, and because of access to that they are called now rare earths, not just diamonds, but the gold still is highly demanded. So where we live is where most beautiful places are in this beautiful planet. So that's what we are carrying out through the fountain to protect these sacred territories. But also we are advancing through my presence and through the presence of many indigenous peoples through the Fourth Earth Mandate to carry out this protection of sacred sites, that we call biocultural sacred sites, the establishment of the houses of original thought, the spiritual houses, and also the acknowledgement of the spiritual authority of original peoples. And we are pushing for interdialogue, intercultural exchange, and intercultural dialogue, not just among original nations, but with other allies that want to learn from original wisdom, from ancestral wisdom, from original principles. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mindahi, and thank you, Geraldine. Just deeply appreciative for your presence and your wisdom. So let's move to the questions that came through. And if Katie, you want to post the first one, and if she's not able to, I can. Let's do this one first. Okay, so first question is, the indigenous stages of life ceremony seem so important, like the vision quest for coming of age and the sweat lodge purification. Do you recommend these ceremonies for everyone?
Well, I can say that yes, these ceremonies are very important in any culture. They might all be different, but every culture we have our own specificities. So we have the obligations to do research for every culture to carry out and not to take over. You know, sometimes it's very difficult to say people, you don't have to, oh, please respect the specificities of this territory because this was born here. When we listen to the environment and to the spirits and entities. So yes, this is very important. For example, the vision quest. It exists everywhere. We just need to acknowledge and to do research how to carry out this in a proper way. And around the, for example, the sweat lodge purification, just to let you know that when we go to the sweat lodge, we go for three different purposes, and it depends how these purposes are. For example, we go for just for the body cleansing, and when a person needs something to talk about, or when they have these issues and mental issues or thoughts, we go through this protocol to talk about specific issues what the person or the collective is bringing to the sweat lodge. But we also, at the same time, is very spiritual, because when we carry out rituals in the sweat lodge, what we call temazcal or tikta, it's so beautiful, because then you can get in touch with the spiritual world, with the entities, with the guardians of certain places. But that's another level. But it's all together with the physical, the mental, and the spiritual world. So yes, I recommend, at least for if people don't know, they can travel to the places where it is born, and they can be guided by the elders, by the ones who know, always acknowledging where this practice was born. That's what I recommend.
And Geraldine, do you think you want to add to that? Oh, okay. So yeah, so Mindahi, does it, like, because I know a lot of people who've traveled far and wide to take part in ceremonies. So if I heard you correct, that's okay, and it's like it's having a respect for the origin of that ceremony and the people who have created it is primary.
Yeah. And when you take, for example, somebody takes that ceremony to other places, it's a lack of respect. So we need to be very mindful about that. If you want to have an experience or you are passing through difficulties in your life, and you want to have, for example, plant ceremony with a special plant ceremony that are needed for special kind of sickness or whatever is going on, you need to travel to the place right there where the knowledge is born, and not just to go everywhere. you come to your mind, and sometimes it's just business.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification. That's important. I'll put the next question up here. What is your take on the Native American word wichikau, the illness or insanity caused by greed that infects so many people on the planet, and what is the cure?
What is your take on the Native American word wichikau, the illness or insanity caused by greed that infects so many people on the planet? I don't know this word wichikau, which is the illness or insanity caused by greed. I can just tell you that this is egocentric and anthropocentrical way of thinking. When you go away from the original principles, when you have lost purpose of life, and you just you are just greedy in any way of being, and you don't take care for others. You just take over. And I think this is an illness. This is a sickness that is mental, and then you carry out in your daily life, but not just in the daily life, but also through thoughts, and thoughts are very powerful. We don't see them, but there is a flow of energy, and they impact in the work and in the world that we are living in. So this work with the co is what we have to work so hard every day, to be mindful that we are not alone, that we live in relationship.
And it seems like that the root of that question is referring to the disharmony, because you spoke so much in your presentation about harmony, being in harmony with everything, and that all are relatives, and it's even within our own bodies to have that healthy relationship.
Yeah.
So there was a question that was, let me bring this one up because it's a good question to dovetail off of that one. That you have given us 7 principles for creating intentional community. Were they part of what Indigenous people call the quote unquote original instructions? And what does that term mean?
Yeah, I can tell you that they are based in the original instructions, but they have been adapted to this moment, to this time and space, because we need to think in this rationality that we need to undo so many thoughts that we have already, even within indigenous communities, because we have been colonized. Most of the, but we have kept this alive at the same time in resistance. So, well, the original instructions, what does it mean? You know, the original instructions are original laws that were given. They are very related to the natural laws, that they are not thought in the human thinking, but they are already there. They are inherited in this planet, in this beautiful being, before the presence of humans. And we receive those through ceremony, through spiritual consultation, but they are always there. They are always there, and they are part of the base of all what it is. So the original instructions really are the first mandates of the origins, and they are laws that we need to recover if we are to recover dignity as human beings. So these principles were born from that ancestral wisdom.
Yeah. You know, when you were going through the principles, the first one, it struck me.
It's 6 o'clock.
Was that love was the first principle, and the way that you, I think Geraldine, you were talking to this principle, and that there, it was about meditation, but it was also about movement, walking prayer you mentioned, and it seemed to me that the way that you explained love as being that first principle of intentional community, it was very much again about harmony and being in touch, like with ourselves and our connection to the earth and the land and one another. It's not an intellectual love or just even a heart-based love, but it's a movement-based love. And I hadn't really heard it explained that way before. Is there anything that you'd like to say about love as the foundational principle, given the way that you described it? And this could be Geraldine or Mindahi.
Yeah. Go ahead, Geraldine.
Yeah, please.
Me? Okay. Yeah, so more than ever, we call upon everyone who is really needing to express through some artistic form, through their own body, their own voice, their own writing capacities, through their painting, weaving, sculpture making, but also sailing or walking or riding a horse. All of these are experiences, or making love. You know, to be conscious about the fact that we are just you know, these bodies in motion, and that are letting this energy flow through us. It's the only way that we can be a replica, and a very humble replica, by the way, of the original one source of love, which is in motion. It's definitely like palpitating like a heartbeat, and it is also moving in spirals, and there's other motions involved. That's how we can we know that this is the representation of the source of love, because of how the Otomi drew it and represented it, which is right there in the center of this image that I'm trying to put here. Yeah, over there. So that is a representation right in the center of that source, which is in movement. Yeah, I would say that today more than ever, if our children don't want to go to school, don't want to watch a teacher over the screen, you know, give them that 1 year of, if they are ready to express themselves in new ways, and those are artistic ways, or maybe they may be really like mathematic, or, you know, some genius way that would otherwise be totally like dormant or suppressed. This is the time to move these emotions and let these beautiful children who are coming with their kit of you know, life-saving offers. They may be of any and many kinds that is unimaginable to us as adults, and yeah, let's help them and support them to do that other way of communication of their emotions, because otherwise we we will not really be at this time building within ourselves the kind of core, I mean, like central heart, love-giving, source, which needs to be strong, it needs to be resilient, it needs to be emotionally intelligent, it needs to be mindful and empathic. And all this as a formula we need to build within ourselves, and this is the time to do so. And if I could jump to the next question about prophecies.
Sure.
Yes, we are precisely in these times of building ourselves up in this totally new way as human beings. And there's a cycle for us to do this. We're in the middle of that cycle. It began in 2013 and it closes in 2026. So all the cleansing, all the detoxifying, and it may be detoxifying from emotions, from structures of thinking, structures of and ways of feeling, of communicating, again, of expressing ourselves, but also other kinds of structures, the economic, structure, and the grid that involves and comes and expects us to become, like total consumers of this kind of energy. And there's other sources of energy that are out there. All of this needs to come and be unveiled for all of us. But it all starts from within, and we have a lot of homework and work to do to become those responsible beings that understand and connect with those original instructions that are, like Mindahi says, there all the time. Just we need to open our minds and our hearts to receive that to be able to read that instruction. And we will be much happier people. Yeah,
it seems so we're, according to that, then it's almost no surprise in a way that we're going through all the turmoil that we're going through, because it's part of the cleansing, it would seem. The other thing, and it also struck me as well, is when you talked about spirit, like not only the relationship with spirit. Let's see if I can find it in my notes, but it was be in harmony with the natural world and the spiritual world. And what I as you were giving the presentation, what was coming to me was like this realization that that indigenous people, for the spirit is, at least this is my interpretation, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but the spiritual sense, the spiritual world, the connection to it is very fluid and it flows. Whereas in the West, we've become attached to reason. We've become so attached to reason and science that, like, for us, we really have to, in the West, work hard at making the spiritual connection. And it doesn't feel to me like that's the same with indigenous people, because it's so natural and fluid.
Yeah. And I can say that when, for example, when you carry out any task or anything, even when you build a house, for example, you ask permission to the land, and when you put the first rock, you put offerings. You put some payments over there, because everything is related to the spirit. And when you travel, you also ask permission to travel. When you arrive to a place, it's not just to arrive, but thank you for welcoming me. And then if you have a chance, go to the sacred places and give thanks. And at the beginning of the day, at the sunrise, also, we are connected always. at noon, and at dusk.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful. So this is not one way, or we think, oh, I'm going to go to this ceremony, and no, all the life is ceremony.
Yeah.
All life is ceremony.
And-
even when you go to a gathering, when you gather with somebody else, and when you share meal in this beautiful way, and that's the reason now elders are saying there is a new mandate from Mother Earth. Think beautifully, because we have so much here that we don't see. We are just so much thoughts in our brains that we cannot even sometimes move. We don't realize the beauty of the day. For some people, I have heard that they don't even see the sun for the whole day. They go to work and they go to bed without seeing that there was a day.
Right.
And it's very sad. It's very sad. So we need to remember this connection always. Always.
And all of those things that you said, there's nothing complicated about those things. Like just recognizing and thanking the land and all of those things. It's not, you don't have to be a theologian to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I read the last question about prophecy, prophecy is a beautiful way of action, because if prophecy is not alive, it's not prophecy. We need to work and push for this prophecy to become a reality. Especially the prophecies that are beautiful, like the eagle and the condor prophecy, when peoples come together, because there was an interruption of communication because of the colonization and the settle down of nation states. Then many people came apart, even in the borders. So we lost that connection, and now the prophecy is saying, this is the time. And it's all together with the sixth son, which is the first son. Again, the new account. It's not the ending of the life, it's the ending of a calendar, accounting. And now we are, as Geraldine said, we are in this 13-year cycle cleansing process. But we have the chance to do the work that we have to do. And then we honor this prophecy, because we are now coming together with so many people from original nations. And not just from original nations, but with allies and other people that are trying to honor the origins. And I don't like the word re-indigenize, but something like that.
Yeah.
To remember who we are, and to remember that we are just humans.
Yeah. What's your impression of who you call allies, and the evolution of the ally community and your relationship, the Indigenous relationship with allies? How are you experiencing that?
Now more than before, than ever, I'm seeing people that are being touched by this energy, and by the need that they need to be reconnected, but being in service, as we are in service. So the allies that we are meeting, or they are coming together with us, they are very meaningful about this relationship, and they are very respectful. They want to learn, they want to be in service, and they really want to support the common task that we have.
Yeah.
So no, it's not any ally, but allies that really want to transform themselves, transcend themselves. Because this is a great opportunity now. This is the opportunity that we have. So allies means that they also need help. They also receive the sun rays. They also receive our prayers. Of course, we pray for our sacred sites, but we just don't pray for us. We pray for all living beings. We pray for this relationship with the celestial bodies. So we don't just take care about the 80% of biodiversity in the world. we care for all biodiversity in the world. And whatever happens over there is affecting us.
Yeah.
Whatever happens here is affecting you. But we need to be conscious and we need to regain consciousness that we have a common task. Yeah, so those kind of lives we need.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. This next question here is, please provide us with an update on Mindahi's attempts to have the Catholic Church rescind the tragic doctrine of discovery.
Oh, yes.
And you might want to define that for people who have not heard about the doctrine of discovery or don't know it by that name.
Yeah, you know, the doctrine of discovery was born through these papal walls, through these divine laws exerted by the Vatican, by the Pope, in the 16th century by Pope Nicholas. And there were other papal walls, but these ones were the worst. One exerted to Africa before, and in 1493, there was this papal wall that was edicted by this Pope Nicholas, and it gave birth to the doctrine of discovery. And what it means that they gave to the imperial powers the chance to take over lands, to enslave people, to set up colonial states, take over any relic or any sacred object. And they were taken to the Vatican and other museums especially in Europe, and later on in the United States and others in Canada, and so on and so forth. So this doctrine of discovery is, we have been fighting to rescind the papal walls by the Vatican. I was part of the delegation that almost 2 years ago, I met with the Pope. I spoke with Pope Francis, and I gave this very simple letter that we were asking in the name of original nations to rescind the papal walls. And it's not the first one. Many others have done that, like Steve Newcomb, Oren Lyons, and other indigenous leaders from original nations. We have done it. But myself, I spoke with Pope Francis for less than 3 minutes, and I told him, please rescind these papal walls. And I also asked for 2 other things. Please give back the relics and the sacred objects that were taken without any permission, because they are very meaningful for the people's identity and also for territories' identity. And the third thing I asked for was that they must support the protection of biocultural sacred sites around the world. Because the sacred sites around the world are very meaningful, are energetic points that give us enough energy to survive in this world. So they are very meaningful to be protected. And there is not an international regime now to protect sacred sites around the world. So we are aiming at that, and I asked for that as well.
Yeah. So what did he tell you? Or
Well,
was-
he said we are going to study this, and we are going to give an answer sometime. But then we had later on last year a very small meeting with one of representatives of the Vatican, and he came from the dicastery of human development, and I thought he was very embedded in this, and we had talked with him before, but at the end he didn't answer in the right way. He misbehaved as like a little one. It was very, very astonishing how they they do things. But now that I recently went to Sweden, and we asked the Pope for the Pope presence to be there, because there was this beautiful meeting with Ecocide International with Jojo Mehta, and Ecocide Sweden with Pelatiel and others, other beautiful people who are working to acknowledge ecocide as a crime. And in this meeting, there was this representative of the Vatican, Bishop Cardinal Arborelius, and Oren Lyons was there in this Zoom meeting. I was in presence, in person, and Steve Newcomb was also there, talking about the doctrine of discovery and the domination code. And I saw this cardinal very moved. He was even crying with other people. How the horrendous thing they have done to indigenous and original nations. Very horrible. So he agreed, because I proposed to him in a private meeting to establish a working group to advance around these issues.
Yeah.
And we are not going to leave it. We are going to struggle and go for it. But we need more and more and more support from allies and different people, organizations, and nation states even.
Yeah.
Because this doctrine of discovery, these people were recently used in the Macintosh case, and in Canada and in the United States. Because when they refer to the land position and to the underground position, they refer to these paper balls.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. It's very grave. But it's what we are, until now, until 5 centuries after, we are still suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is all about that.
Well, we're gonna. The final question will be about how people can support you, but there is one more question I want to bring in before we get to that. And this one was from the social stream. It says, sadly, the latest research says the inhospitable land on Earth will increase from 1% today to 20% by the year 2070, which will continue to drive climate migration in Southeast Asia, Africa, and South America. What are your concerns about this?
I think we can reverse it if we carry out ceremonies, if we carry out the transformation of institutions, transformation of nation states. If we really do the work we have to do, we can reverse this, because we have the chance to, first of all, slow down, then stop and reverse anything that threatens life. So for that, we need to change and transform institutions. And the institutions that are not in that position, they need to be eliminated or gone. What do you think, Geraldine?
Yes, I agree. And I would add that as long as we can, ensure that there are these pockets of ecosystems, of biomes that can keep the resilience or build up their resilience. And I'm talking about also social ecosystems. So that means that people who have been dwelling in these ecosystems and that are integral parts of these ecosystems, and that live according to the internal dynamics of the ecosystem and help keep the ecosystem in balance through various ways, through their own like ant little work by work of whatever happens in the forest or in the desert, wherever it is. They can really enable these pockets of biomes, of ecosystems to receive the impacts that will be definitely coming because of the extreme weather patterns, but that they will be able to receive those impacts in a way that will not totally destroy their integrity and their function and their structure as systems, as complex systems. So the problem that we are facing now is that these complex living systems are at the very same time very vulnerable and very exposed to totally becoming like dismantled altogether. Why? Because indigenous peoples, medicine men and women, and frontline defenders are being killed, eliminated in some way or another, traumatized, their families threatened, and so forth. So if this, which is one of the heartbeats of the social ecosystems, is eliminated at the rate that they are being, we are in trouble as a whole planet. Also, additionally, if the extractivist industries, you name it, it can be water, like in Chile, and the government now in place, but for the past 40 years or 50 years, should I say, has this policy of totally taking over all the rivers and all the underground water in perpetuity. Anyone with money and within the corrupted network can become an owner of a river and dam it, make it and turn it into a reservoir and administrate that water for their own benefit, for their own crops and for their own agricultural irrigated systems, leaving the rest of the valleys, which are so fertile and are like designed by creator in a way that would ensure the abundance and bountiful and beautiful way of living of many more million people down in Chile. This is just one example. This is not possible today because there's just a handful of greedy politicians and greedy owners of land that have cut the natural flow of these rivers. But we could speak the same about the mining companies and now the lithium and all that entails, and it's within this dynamic that this population that is growing beyond the 7 billion is going to be wanting all these electric cars and this and that. But that is not the case anymore. Our generation and Generation Z, and our children are from that generation. My daughter says, are we the last ones? Well, I hope we're the last ones relying on fossil fuels for sure. Mm-hmm. But then we are, a whole new chapter of human beings who are going to go around the world just walking. And whatever you cannot do beyond walking, like Greta Thunberg, you don't do. So this is what we need. We cannot allow any more, these extractive industries coming into Africa as they are, damming the rivers as they are. And it has to stop, because precisely all these nurtured valleys with these waters are going to be totally devastated. And for what? To have just electricity from the dams being delivered to these cities that are going to be underwater a couple of decades from now. It's totally, you know, a rationale that is definitely not feasible anymore and not acceptable anymore. And so conscious society, conscious groups of people, people in places of decision making really need to come up, step up, and start to change those policies. So right now in Mexico, we're becoming involved in precisely one such decision-making group, policy-making group with scientists, with just people from in the ground in indigenous communities who are defending their river basins and going to put in place what it takes for the next century to ensure there's vital communities that can thrive from these natural basins.
Yeah, and restore our relationship to the earth and all of our relatives on Earth, not just human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, Mindahi, there's one last question here. What can our viewers do to support your sacred work?
Well, for the beginning, just to acknowledge the spiritual authority of original nations for the beginning, that we have the lead now, and because we know how to carry out things, how to reactivate sacred sites, so they support the task. And also through very simple things, respect life, and also teach your little ones and teach yourself that we are here and it's a great opportunity. It's a chance for transcendence. And the work we are doing now, if you're an ally, yes, we have web pages that you can support the work we are doing in various ways. Not just monetizing ways, but also if you want to contribute in a reciprocal way, you can do it, and you can ask us through our emails, through our websites, and then over there you can see our emails, mindahibastida@gmail.com and damishiahau@gmail.com, or you can find the webpage of the fountain.org or the earthtimekeepers.org. So thank you very much for all this opportunity to be together in this time. But remember that we are all connected. And if we have very beautiful thoughts, we can do it.
Yes, beautiful thinking. Thank you. I love that. Thank you so much, Mindahi and Geraldine. We just appreciate so much your wisdom and your intention and all that you brought to the conference. This is a lovely way to start to come to the end of this particular conference. So thank you so much. And let me remind everyone that our next sessions begin on Saturday, the 31st at 7 Eastern. We have heart sharing and sacred listening, followed by our first roundtable on nurturing our humanity, which will be moderated by Laura George. And then on Sunday, the first or second roundtable, which I'll be moderating, which is called Possible World. And then we'll have closing comments on Sunday following the roundtable. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here and being present. We appreciate you, and we'll see you very soon. Be well in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.